Chapter 16 Daivasura Sampad Vibhaga Yoga, the unitive way of discriminating between higher and lower values. We now come to the last three chapters of the Bhagavad Gita. See, where the teachings are now back to the lower nature. As we described many times, we human beings have got two natures. One is our absolute spiritual self, the other is our lower nature. So these chapters 16, 17 and 18 are dealing with the lower nature of human beings. And in the scheme of the Gita, which is an arch scheme, we start from the battlefield and we end in the battlefield. And as we start rising chapter by chapter, the teachings become steadily subtler and higher till we come to the middle of the Gita. In the middle of the Gita we have all the highest teachings. And then when we come to the second half of the Gita, slowly the teachings are bringing us back down into the battlefield again. So 15th chapter spoke of Purushottama Yoga, absolute supreme, which is beyond the changing, beyond the changeless, the supreme person. Now we come to another aspect of our lives, and that is the qualities which people have. Chapter is called Daiva Suri Sampatti Vibhaga. Daiva Sampatti and Asuri Sampatti. The divine and the demonic. In the Puranas and even in the Upanishads, there is a constant mention of two types of characters. There is the divine, the Devas and the Asuras. They are constantly fighting one another. The Devas are divine, they are good, they are intelligent, and the Asuris are evil-minded and they are demonic, their intentions are not good. This is the general statement. So cruelty is a characteristic of the Asuric. Now we know that those are myths and legends, and what they are really speaking about is the tendencies in human beings. The tendency to do good, the tendency to be upright, the tendency to be noble, and the tendency to be straightforward, which are all divine qualities. And the other side is the tendency of man to become arrogant, the tendency of man to become proud, and tendency of man to become over-ambitious. These tendencies are against the spiritual nature of man. Spiritual nature of man is humble, spiritual nature of man is pure, spiritual nature of man is kind. But when it is overtaken by this egoism, dambho, darpa, abhiman, and big schemes, we see the effects of it in our environment when the natural resources are depleted, human beings are oppressed, and all kinds of exploitation takes place, civil unrest takes place, injustice takes place. This is happening in everyday world. This is a characteristic of the Asuri Sampatti. And the Devi Sampatti is wherever people are feeling free and creative and they are feeling happy and joyous, then you can say the Devi Sampatti is predominant. So this chapter is by and large also a diagnostic chapter. In this we are supposed to examine our own life very minutely, very closely, to see how many of these Daivi Sampatti we have, and if there is any Asuric tendencies, then we should gradually remove those tendencies. Why is that? Because Daivi Sampatti leads to Mukti and Asuri Sampatti leads to bondage. Man becomes troubled in his mind, restless, tormented by the Asuri Sampatti. And a man becomes free, peaceful and enlightened by the Devi Sampatti. So Sri Bhagavanu Vacha, the Lord said, Abhayam is the first word, Abhayam, absence of fear or fearlessness. In the Upanishads there is a sloka, Abhayam Vai Brahma. It means the person who knows Brahman becomes fearless. What is the quality of a spiritual person? That person has no more any fear. Fear is a product of ignorance. You know, when things with which you are associated If those things are taken away, then fear comes. Fear is of the unknown. Many types of fear. Fear of pain, fear of humiliation, fear of loss. So this fearlessness is the first quality. To be fearless, abhayam, sattva samshuddhir. Sattva, is truthfulness or clarity, transparency. Samshuddhi. This is an inner purity. When a person's mind becomes clear, clean, then he will say that is sattva samshuddhi. So abhayam is the first quality, then sattva samshuddhi, then jnana yoga vyavasthitihi. Jnana yoga, that means proper affiliation to knowledge. A person who is pursuing wisdom, meditating on wisdom and reflecting constantly, becoming a wise person and properly affiliated. Properly affiliated means you follow a proper teacher, proper scripture. If you have this proper affiliation, then you say jnana yoga vyavasthitihi. Danam damascha yajnascha. So danam, is charity, giving. And giving also must be done with a proper attitude to the right sort of person, in the right sort of way, at the right time. Then it becomes a proper dana, without any patronizing, without any expectations in return. And knowing that whatever you give will be put to good use, then you say that is a proper dana. Sharing what you have with others is also a type of dana. Then comes damas. Dama means restraining, controlling yourself. This is applied to at the sensory level. When you prevent the senses from engaging with the sense objects, you are practicing dama. Damascha yajnascha. Yajna means sacrifice. According to Shankaracharya, Yagnihotra and Shrautra, the various types of yajnas that we do. But it could also mean the jnana yajna that you do. When you spend time studying, or you spend time discussing, or you use your efforts and resources to increase your wisdom, that is a jnana sacrifice, sacrifice of wisdom. And a wisdom sacrifice is always considered superior to a dravya yajna. Dravya yajna means a prajna where material objects are being sacrificed. Like the Vedic yajnas, you are offering the ahuti and you are offering the ghee, that is dravya yajna. But if a student sits with his book and tries to understand and tries to study, that is a jnana yajna. He is sacrificing his time and his energy to improve himself, to learn more. So that is jnana yajna. Then swadhyaya. Adhyayan means to study. Swa means one's own. By one's own self, when a person pursues study, pursues books, then you say it is swadhyaya. Then tapa. Tapa means to lead a disciplined life. Tapas. As we know, there is a vangmaya tapasya, there is a sharir tapasya, there is a tapasya of the mind that will be discussed in the next chapter. When this body is not used to hurt anybody, that is a tapasya of the body. When no harsh word is used, then you say that is tapasya of the word. And when your mind is always entertaining good thoughts, that is tapasya of the mind. So the disciplining of mind and body and speech, that is tapasya. And then arjavam. Arjavam means straightforwardness, rectitude, behaving correctly. And arjavam is the word from which Arjuna comes. Arjuna is a model of arjavam. He is always correct, he is proper in his behavior, in his attitude. This is the opening shloka of the Daivi Sampatti, that is fearlessness, transparency to truth, proper affiliation to wisdom, charity or generosity, self-restraint and sacrifice, self-study, discipline and rectitude. And even these should be done with a proper attitude, not ostentatiously, not to show off, not to win the respect of the community or the society, but for one's own personal, spiritual unfoldment, development. Then the next set is ahimsa. Ahimsa means not hurting. Ahimsa can again have
ahimsa of the body, ahimsa of the word, and ahimsa of the mind. If a person does not physically hurt anybody, then that is called ahimsa of the body. And with your words, you don't speak harsh words, or you don't insult anybody, or you are not rude, that is the ahimsa of the word. And with your mind also, you don't think any hateful thought. You think only for the welfare of all, and then it becomes ahimsa of the mind. And then satyam. Satyam is truth, being truthful. Akrodhas tyagaha shantir apaishunam. Akrodha means the absence of anger. Anger is a rajogun. When a person has an intention, a wish, a desire, and that desire is blocked, then anger comes. So anger is a product of attachment and passion. So releasing, letting go of anger. And tyagaha, relinquishment. Shantihi apaishunam. Shantihi, becoming calm, of a calm nature. You don't get excited. You don't get unnecessarily troubled. You have a swabhava which has shanti. Apaishunam is self-integrity. Leaving others alone and non-interfering. Having a non-interfering nature. Daya bhuteshu. Compassion. To have daya towards all beings. Aloluptvam. And non-interest in sense values. Sense values always take the mind outside. They disturb the peace of a person. So the yogi or this Daivi Sampatti person does not take interest in sense values. He does not go to a casino or any other such place where the senses can get excited. Takes no interest in sense values. Mardavam. Mardavam means gentleness. And Hrihi is modesty. Achapalam is non-fickleness. So becoming steady in mind. Ahimsa satyam akrodhas tyagaha shantir apaishunam daya bhuteshu aloluktvam mardavam hrid achapalam. This is another set of Daivi Sampatti. Now when you read these, you can reflect for a minute. Go into your own life, all the incidents that take place, the way you live, the way you have your values, and see how many of these qualities are actually present in you. You are bound to have some of these qualities. How many of these qualities can be cultivated, can be consciously grown? Then you should grow that. So then your Daivi Sampatti will increase. Your divine qualities will increase. Your divine wealth. Sampatti means one's possessions or wealth. So that will be increased. With the increase of the divine values, a person will proportionately increase his happiness, his joy and his sense of freedom also. Tejaha kshama dhritihi saucham. This is another set. Tejaha means alertness, being alert and being awake, not a sleepy or a dull person. Teja means brightness, tejas. And kshama. Kshama means having forgiveness. Don't have the sense of revenge. You don't want to take revenge on anybody. You don't want to retaliate. That is kshama. Dhritihi means you have fortitude. You are firm. And saucham is cleanliness. Adroho na atimanita. So these are again more virtues. Adroha means you don't have droha, no malice towards anybody. You don't have enmity or malice. Na atimanita. Then you don't have excessive respectability also. It is good to be respectable, but when there is a sense of excessive respectability, and a person becomes oversensitive to respectability, then it loses its divine quality. Bhavanti daivim sampadam abhijatasya bharata. So this complete list of 3 slokas, he has listed the qualities which make up the divine personality. Forgiveness, transparency to truth, proper affiliation to unity of wisdom, attitude of generous sharing, self-restraint, sacrifice, private perusal of sacred books, discipline, rectitude, non-hurting, truth, non-anger, relinquishment, calmness, self-integrity, compassion to beings, non-interest in sense values, gentleness, modesty, non-fickleness, alertness, forgiveness, fortitude, cleanliness, absence of malice, absence of excessive respectability. These make up the divine or higher values of anyone. O Bharata, born for them. Now we come to the second set. These are the demonic values. There we have dambho, darpo, abhimanascha, krodha, parushyam evacha, ajnanam cha abhijatasya, partha sampadam asurim. So this is all affiliation with the rajasic qualities. So pretentiousness, trying to be what one is not. Arrogance, a sense of self-importance. Abhiman, and krodha, and parushyam, harshness, speaking with harsh words and harsh tones. Chayeva ajnanam, also ignorance. Partha asurim sampadam abhijatasya. So these become the demonic or lower values. So whenever you see these qualities manifesting, of a person acting with pretensions, or with arrogance, or unnecessary self-importance, or anger, or harshness, and also displaying ignorance, you say that that is the asuri sampatti. So this makes the lower values. So divine values make a person higher, and asuric values make a person lower. Daivi sampadim vimokshaya nibaddhaya asuri mata. So the Daivi sampatti leads to mukti. It gives a sense of freedom to a person. It relieves the person from all mental tensions and unhappiness. Whereas nibaddhaya asuri mata. Whereas the asuri tendencies starts tormenting the very person, and the person gets a sense of being bound, sense of being oppressed. So that oppressive feeling that a person gets is because of the asuri mata, or the asuri tendencies. Ma suchaha sampadam devim abhijatasya si Pandava. But then he clearly says to this Arjuna, he says, in case you have any doubts, you are born of higher values. Do not regret, O Pandava, you are born for the divine values. So bondage to necessity, the feeling of bondage to necessity which restricts human beings' lives, this is because of the demonic values. Dvau bhuta sargau loke asmi daiva asuri evacha daivo vistarasah prokta asurim partha me shrunu. Punishment here is in terms of degradation in the scale of contemplative values. So offenders get caught in more and more necessity. So when you talk of higher and lower values, this is in terms of contemplative values. The person who has contemplative abilities, he can rise above necessity. Whereas the demonic person, he finds himself sinking more and more into the necessary realms. And necessity is the cause of all the misery of human beings. So these are two orders of created beings in this world. Sri Krishna divides all beings into two broad divisions in this world, and one is the divine and the other is the demonic. And the divine has been described in length, starting from Abhaya, Sattva, Samshuddhi, etc. These are all the qualities of the divine. And now he goes into a lengthy description of the demonic. So hear from me, O Partha, of the demonic. Now the demonic have no intelligence, they have no virtues, and these lack of superior qualities, it makes them confused people, titanic. They can cause a lot of disruption in the world, because pravrittim cha nivrittim cha janana vidur asura. The asura doesn't understand what is pravritti and what is nivritti. Pravritti means what should be done, what is the responsibilities he should take, what he should do, that is pravritti. And nivritti is what he should withdraw from, negative withdrawal. So we have both these tendencies. We should know what we have to do positively and where we have to withdraw. For wisdom, sometimes it is necessary to withdraw. It is sometimes necessary to move away. Sometimes we have to act. But the Asuri mentalities, they are not certain about this. They are confused about pravrittim and nivritti. Na saucham na api na charo na satyam teshu vidyate. And then they don't have cleanliness, no saucham. And na achara. You see, achara means conduct. Acharya is the person who teaches you right conduct. So achara means the right way of conducting themselves. They don't have that. Na satyam teshu vidyate. And they don't have any truth, no veracity. You can't believe, you can't take their words as holding any veracity. Na satyam teshu vidyate. So in them there is neither cleanliness nor propriety in conduct nor veracity. So such is the way of the demonics. Asatyam apratishtamte jagadahur anishwaram aparasparam sambhutam kim anyat kama hetukam. Not only that, they have even a philosophy of life which is very materialistic. They don't think of any superior being in this world. anything apart from what they can experience from their senses, the empirical world. They can't think of anything higher. So it's short-sighted and a very disjunct attitude to life. When they say, asatyam apratishtham, asatyam means this world is without true existence, without a basis, no pratishtha. And anishwaram, without any presiding principle, there is no Ishvara here. Aparasparam sambhutam, not resulting from reciprocal factors, lying beyond immediate vision. So whatever they can see, they say only this is the cause. And kim anyat, they think this lust is the only reason behind this world. Man is attracted to a woman and that relationship is all that has caused this world. So they think lust is all that there is in this world. No higher principle, no higher truth, no other foundation. So this sort of short-sighted vision. Etam drishtim avashtabhya nashtatmano alpabuddhayah prabhavatyanti ugra karmanah kshayaya jagato ahitaha. So these people holding to such views, they are nashta atmanaha, means their atman has become nashta. They have lost their souls. Avashtabhya, by holding such views and of lost souls, alpa buddhiya. Alpa means little bit. Buddhi means their intellect. So they have only alpa buddhis, limited intellectual capacities. Prabhavanti ugra karmanam, yet they do harsh deeds, ugra karmas. They do great activities, they indulge in great deeds, but which only bring about the world's decline. Jagataha kshayayaha. So when you see many of the ways multinationals are operating, of course now there is much awareness also, but still when you see the way the rainforests are being depleted and so many other things are going on, typical Asuri type of thinking. You just don't want to think of the future, just the immediate gain, that is all. And they bring about the world's decline. So non-beneficial, affecting the world's decline. Kamam asritya dushpuram dambhamana madanvitaha mohad grahitva sadgrahan pravartante asuchivritaha. So they are holding on to insatiable desires. Not only that, their mind has so many desires. They are filled with desires. And they want to hold on to all those desires. And they are accompanied by pretentiousness, arrogance and madness. Dambha, mana, mada and anvitaha. So all these characteristics, they are like crazy people. And convinced of wrong notions. And their extremes. Here of course the extremes are magnified for contrasting. That this is the way of the Asuric mind. The Asuric mind works in this way. Fondly grasping false values. And they deludedly act with unclean resolve. So their resolutions, whatever varata they take, they resolve to do something, but that has an asuchi nature, it's unclean. And these qualities, though they are acting, they are doing things, yet underlying it all, there is a tendency to be destructive, destructively affecting the world. Chintam apare meyam cha pralayantam upashritaha kama upabhoga parama etaditi nischitaha. So there again they say, they have so many chintas, their mind is full of chintas, engrossed with infinite cares, lasting till doomsday, for whom desire and enjoyment is the sure end, cocksure that such is the way. Now you can picture in your mind these two. On one side is the peaceful, contemplative, pure-minded person, who is kind and forgiving, who has no sense interest, whose mind is fixed on higher values. And on the other side is this other person, who has no such long-term thinking, totally short-sighted, whose mind is full of desires, whose actions have unclean resolve, who is full of thousands of thoughts, chintas, and he holds on to all these desires. So this is the demonic nature. Now, when you look at the life of these two persons, one person is leading a life of peace and inner purity and inner joy, and the other person is leading a life of agitation. Not only is he agitated himself, he is also agitating the environment. He is also agitating the other people he comes in contact with. So that becomes the demonic tendency. That person's life is bound to be full of sense of bondage, necessity. Krapana, when a person feels the pinch of necessity, then a person becomes poor. In contemplative way of thinking, what is rich and what is poor? If a person needs something, then that person becomes poor. When a person is contented, then the person is rich. So the measurement here is not in terms of material goods, but the attitude that a person has. So when you come to the sadhu or the sannyasi, he has no possession, so he can be considered the richest man. Mahatma Gandhi, when he died, when they checked his possessions, all he had was a wristwatch, one pair of shoes and a lathi. He had absolutely no possessions. Yet he was so rich because he was influencing the world. And that is the criteria of richness from a spiritual point of view. And on the other side, you can have a person with a lot of goods, but inwardly he is craving for more, so that makes him poor. So it is purely a psychological thing. So having a sense of contentment is essential for happiness. And then the question arises, what is progress? These are all the other arguments that can be put forward. But to feel a sense of peace and to feel happiness, there must be contentment. And this is where pravrittim and nivrittim comes in. You must know where is pravritti and where is nivritti. Because to gain release, you need nivritti. And to attain the goods, you need pravritti. Without pravritti, you can't do anything. You can't achieve anything. So you must do pravritti. But in that pravritti, there must also be nivritti, an ability to detach yourself. So pravritti and nivritti, if your secret is known, then a person becomes a yogi. And that's the whole secret, that a person is performing his actions, but he is not bound by the result. So he has the secret of pravritti and nivritti. But here the Asuri person, he has no such understanding. So he is trying to hoard. He works very hard, but at the back of his mind he wants to hoard the wealth. The reason for holding the wealth is so that at a future time he can enjoy himself for sensual enjoyment. So future intention of enjoyment, he is hoarding wealth. That is, asha pasha shatair baddhaha kama krodha parayanaha ihante kama bhogartham anyanena artha sanchayan. So artha means wealth. Sanchayam, he is hoarding the wealth with the idea of kama bhogartham, with the intention of enjoying kama and bhoga. So such a person becomes bound. Baddhaha asha pasha shataihi, with the asha, with expectations. So many expectations in his mind, they are acting like cords, like a rope that binds up something. The person is bound by all these cords of expectations. Kama krodha parayana, and he is given to lust and anger. If you meet such a person, he is a lustful, angry person. Ihante ananyena, and they strive unfairly. So this is a very gruesome picture of a Asuri person. Supreme status given to a value belonging to the here and now. So he lives everything for the here and now, just to enjoy everything here and now. And not only that, he has got a psychology operating in his mind. He is always plotting and planning that today this has been gained by me, tomorrow I shall get that. And then he has all kinds of enemies and he wants to conquer that enemy. So this sort of a attitude is brought out very well by Ishwaran in his commentary. He describes a newspaper which he was reading one day. And on one side of the paper was the story of Mother Teresa and her sacrifice. And on the other page was the story of a person. This was in the days of nuclear threat, when people were afraid that a nuclear war may break out, and the Cold War was in its height. So a man was suggesting to people how they can save themselves from a nuclear threat by creating a small room in their homes where they can store and hoard all the necessary things that they should need in case of a nuclear holocaust. And his descriptions are all totally selfish. He was suggesting that they should have so many cans of food and chocolates and all these things, and watch out for the neighbors because the neighbors might try to steal it, and so you must hold on to it. So he describes this is a typical demonic way of thinking. And on the other side is the sacrifice and the love and the warmth of Mother Teresa, which is the divine. So these two tendencies are always operating in our lives from a personal level. At all levels of society, you can see these two tendencies are always happening, intermingling. So the tendency to do good and the tendency to elevate human beings and the tendency to oppress and the tendency to harm, which is the Asuric. So this Daivi Asuric, Sampatti, is the two main branches of life here. So as we said, this is dealing with our lower nature, the nature of man in his day-to-day life. This has nothing to do with his spiritual nature. His spiritual nature is the transcendental, is the pure, beyond cause and effect, achintayam, alakshayam, etc. But once he lives in this body, once he is faced with his society and his fellow human beings, then he comes under these two tendencies. And even here, if he cultivates the divine tendencies, he finds that he can become freed, and he leads a superior life, a more higher life than a person who is still caught up in the passionate world of the Asuri Vrittis. So this is the diagnosis again. There are 3 chapters in the Gita which are diagnostic. The 3 guna, Traigunya Vibhaga Yoga of the 3 gunas, Daivasura Sampatti Vibhaga Yoga, Shraddhatraya Vibhaga Yoga. These chapters are meant for us to examine our own lives and to see how far we are in the Daivi category. And if there are any tendencies we feel we can cultivate, we should cultivate it. So if there is harshness, we must learn how to speak with gentleness. If there is a tendency to hoard, then we should learn how to share with the right sort of people, of course. We are not asking you to just squander everything, but there is a systematic and a proper way to do things. And when there are too many wild schemes, then you should temper it with wisdom. So this should start off a chain of thinking when a contemplative is concerned. This is a book for contemplation, it's a book for the yogis. So those who want to advance in the path of yoga or the path of spiritual life, for them it becomes absolutely necessary to get rid of all the Asuri tendencies. Because you cannot progress if you have even a small bit of those qualities like Dambha, Ahankara, Mana, Krodha. And if these tendencies are there, then that affects a spiritual life. Of course, in society, a person of these tendencies may become powerful, may have the respect of the people of society, etc. That is possible. But from a spiritual point of view, such a person is lost because he loses touch with the soul. He becomes caught in the world of passion and ahankara and all the exaggerations that develop from egoism. And that person is bound to feel that loss of the soul from within himself. He is going to be a troubled person. And therefore, the saving factor here is to find one's own true spiritual nature. That is done by the Daivi Sampatti. The root cause here is threefold. So he says, Narka Dwara, the gateway to Narka, the hell is Kama, Krodha and Lobha. This is all three born out of the Rajogun. Kama means lust or desire. Krodha is anger and Lobha is greed. Lobha is possessiveness. So Lobha is corrected by Dana and Krodha is corrected by Daya and Kama is controlled by Damam, self-restraint. So in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, there is a beautiful story of Prajapati. Prajapati made 3 types of beings, the Devas, the Manushyas and the Asuras. And when they were ready to leave their father's house, they went to him for their final teachings. So he answered them through the clouds, da, 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 3 thunderclaps. And then he asked the Devas, he says, do you understand? Devas said, yes. By da we understood Damam, because the tendencies of the Deva is to enjoy, bhoga. So they should practice Damam, which means self-restraint. Then the Manushyas came, and the Manushyas also said, yes, we understood. By da you said Dana, because Manushya tendency, human tendency is always to possess, to covet. If they see something good somewhere, they want it for themselves. And what they have, they like to hold on to it. That tendency can be corrected by Dana. And then the Asuras came and they said, yes, we also understood by Da, you meant Daya, because the Asuras are cruel by nature. The cruel tendencies are to be corrected by compassion. So wherever a person realizes that he has a certain tendency, then by cultivating its opposite, he corrects himself. So where there is the Asuri Vritti, it is corrected by converting it into a Daivi Vritti. Where there is Mana, you become modest, free. Where there is restlessness, you become steady. Where there is Atimanita, then you cultivate humility. So this way, the person becomes enriched in his inner consciousness, Sattva Samshuddhi. And along with that comes Abhayam, you become fearless. The more and more a person realizes his spiritual nature, surprisingly, the more and more fearless he becomes. Whereas the more and more a person becomes arrogant, etc., the more and more inwardly he harbors fears. He has so many fears. So Asha Baddha, he is tied up with so many expectations. Pasha, Pasha means a noose. Pasha, Pashu and Pati. In another theory, Shaiva Siddhanta, They say Pasha, Pati and Pashu. They say human beings are like the Pashus, like animals. And Pasha, they are all held by the Pasha, the noose which holds them. And that noose is these tendencies. These asuric tendencies are like a Pasha which bind human beings. Tether them just like the cow is tied up to a little peg in the ground and therefore cannot roam freely. Similarly, human beings are tied up by the Pasha of their expectations, Pasha of their asuric vrittis. And Pati is the Lord. When the Pati comes, then he breaks the Pasha. He is able to cut the Pasha, remove the Pasha, and a person becomes freed. So he becomes like the Pati himself. The Pashu becomes into a Pati. The animal nature in man must be converted into the divine nature. It is the animal nature which is responsible for all these tendencies. And even if we study biology, we know that R complex in the brain is related to the animal world, kinship with the animal world. The ancient structures of the brain, the older structures of the brain are the same as those that are in the animals. It is the neocortex and higher structures which distinguish the human being. So we also have to sublimate. When we talk of sublimation, we are sublimating our tendencies to become closer and closer to divine, making our natures divine, so that Daivi Sampatti must be cultivated at all times by consciously and deliberately working on it. By watching yourself and studying yourself, Swadhyaya, Tapas, these are all the methods, self-study and Jnana Yoga Vyavasthita. By studying unitive wisdom and by Tapasya and Yajna, a person is raising himself, moving up from the Asuri to the Daivi. And from the Daivi, it leads to naturally moksha, vimokshaya. So the person is qualifying himself for moksha by going towards the Daivi Sampatti. So this whole chapter is giving a very vivid description of the asuric tendencies, and then it ends by saying Kama, Krodha and Lobha, these three are the gates to hell. So a person should abandon Kama, Krodha and Lobha, which are born of Rajaguna. So desire, anger and greed. So when a person is able to free himself from these three tendencies, then a person is walking on the path of salvation, on the path of the spiritual upliftment. For a spiritual aspirant, all these qualities mentioned here, they are like a poison that can get into that person's psyche, into his consciousness, and they can make it very difficult for that person to progress in his spiritual life. So if you look at this as a textbook for the yogis and for the spiritual aspirants, then this chapter becomes very, very important in examining one's own life. Just like we look in a mirror, and looking in a mirror we can see our own reflection, and we can see any flaw. If there is a flaw, if there is need for correction, we can correct it. Similarly, this offers us a mirror for our inner being, where our tendencies and our thoughts and our feelings and our attitudes are operating. And by reading this and reflecting on it and contemplating on it, we can begin the transformation of our own life. Of course, if there are already Daivi Sampatti is there, then the question doesn't arise. But if there are the other tendencies, then a person should make some effort to rid him and thereby promote his own higher nature. Human beings have higher and lower nature. The higher nature is the divine, and the lower nature, which is closer to the animal world also, is the demonic nature. So when the Puranas talk of Devas and Asuras, they are nothing but the reflection of human nature only. The human beings' qualities are personified as the Devas and the Asuras. Because a yogi takes responsibility to discipline one's own life. He takes charge, he takes full responsibility and starts working on himself and brings about the transformation. Conquers his own lower nature. He brings about a conquest of his own nature. When we see Mahatma Gandhi's life, from a shy and hesitant stammering, he used to stutter. From that sort of a personality, he could become a spokesman for millions of people. He became such a bold person. See, that is where he says an example of a person who conquered his own nature and won over himself. So in spiritual literature, the greatest conquest a person is to conquer one's own nature. It is not considered so great to subdue another person, but it is considered much greater to subdue one's own nature. One's own nature means one's own lower nature. that should become transformed into one's higher nature. And that is the Devi Sampatti. So by looking at this and meditating on it, one can transform oneself.